How's it going, guys? It is Blake here from the thePhantomPages.com, and today we're continuing, I guess in this upload, I shouldn't say today, but in this video we're continuing with the Kybalion with the final chapter. It has been a long journey with this book, despite this book not being very long at all, just like the completion process and the book I did before the completion process, Shadow Before Dawn. Both books taking me, or all three books really taking me a lot longer to complete this series of than I should have. But nonetheless, we're on the final chapter at long last. So sit back, relax, take it all in, and enjoy the final ride of the Kybalion. So in this one, we've got chapter 15, final chapter, Hermetic Axioms. The possession of knowledge, unless accompanied by a manifestation and expression in action, is like the hoarding of precious metals, a vain and foolish thing. Knowledge, like wealth, is intended for use. The law of use is universal, and he who violates it suffers by reason of his conflict with natural forces. The Kybalion. The Hermetic teachings, while always having been kept securely locked up in the minds of the fortunate possessors thereof, for reasons which we have already stated, were never intended to be merely stored away and secreted. The law of use is dwelt upon in the teachings, as you may see by reference to the above quotation from the Kybalion, which states it forcibly. Knowledge without use and expression is a vain thing, bringing no good to its possessor or to the race. Beware of mental, how do we say this? Miscellaneous? I'm not sure what that means. And express into action that which you have and express into action that which you have learned. Study the axioms and the aphorisms, but practice them also. We give below some of the more important Hermetic axioms from the Kybalion, with a few comments added to each. Make these your own, and practice and use them, for they are not really your own until you have used them. To change your mood or mental state, change your vibration. The Kybalion. One may change his mental vibrations by an effort of will in the direction of deliberately fixing the attention upon a more desirable state. Will directs the attention, and attention changes the vibration. Cultivate the art of attention by means of the will, and you have solved the secret of the mastery of moods and mental states. To destroy an undesirable rate of mental vibrations, put into operation the principle of polarity and concentrate upon the opposite pole to that which you desire to suppress. Kill out the undesirable by changing its polarity. The Kybalion. This is one of the most important of the Hermetic formulas. It is based upon true scientific principles. We have shown you that a mental state and its opposite were merely the two poles of one thing, and that by mental transmutation the polarity might be reversed. This principle is known to modern psychologists who apply it to the breaking up of undesirable habits by bidding their students concentrate upon the opposite quality. If you are possessed of fear, do not waste time trying to kill out fear, but instead cultivate the quality of courage, and the fear will disappear. Some writers have expressed this idea most forcibly by using the illustration of the dark room. You do not have to shovel out or sweep out the darkness, but by merely opening the shutters and letting in the light, the darkness has disappeared. To kill out a negative quality, concentrate upon the positive pole of that same quality, and the vibrations will gradually change from negative to positive, until finally you will become polarized on the positive pole instead of the negative. The reverse is also true, as many have found out to their sorrow. When they have allowed themselves to vibrate too constantly on the negative pole of things, by changing your polarity, you may master your moods, change your mental states, remake your disposition, and build up character. Much of the mental mastery of the advanced Hermetics is due to this application of polarity. which is one of the important aspects of mental transmutation. Remember the Hermetic axiom quoted previously, which says, "Mind, as well as metals and elements, may be transmuted from state to state, degree to degree, condition to condition, pole to pole, vibration to vibration." The Kybalion. The mastery of polarization is the mastery of the fundamental principles of mental transmutation or mental alchemy. For unless one acquires the art of changing his own polarity, he will be unable to affect his environment. An understanding of this principle will enable one to change its own polarity as well as that of others, if he will but devote the time, care, study, and practice necessary to master the art. The principle is true, but the results obtained depend upon the persistent patience and practice of the student. Rhythm may be neutralized by an application of the art of polarization, the Kybalion. As we have explained in previous chapters, the Hermeticists hold that the principle of rhythm manifests on the mental plane as well as on the physical plane, and that the bewildering successions of moods, feelings, emotions, and other mental states are due to the backward and forward swing of the mental pendulum, which carries us from one extreme of feeling to the other. The Hermeticists also teach that the law of neutralization enables one, to a great extent, to overcome the operation of rhythm in consciousness. As we have explained, there is a higher plane of consciousness as well as the ordinary lower plane, and the master, by rising mentally to the higher plane, causes the swing of the mental pendulum to manifest on the lower plane, and he, dwelling on his higher plane, escapes the consciousness of the swing backward. This is effected by polarizing on the higher self, and thus raising the mental vibrations of the ego above those of the ordinary plane of consciousness. It is akin to rising above a thing and allowing it to pass beneath you. The advanced Hermeticist polarized himself at the positive pole of his being, the I am pole rather than the pole of personality, and by refusing and denying the operation of rhythm, raises himself above its plane of consciousness, and standing firm in his statement of being allows he allows the pendulum to swing back on the lower plane without changing his polarity. This is accomplished by all individuals who have attained any degree of self-mastery, whether they understand the law or not. Such persons simply refuse to allow themselves to be swung back by the pendulum of mood and emotion, and by steadfastly affirming the superiority they remain polarized on the positive pole. The master, of course, attains a far greater degree of proficiency, because he understands the law which he is overcoming by a higher law, and by the use of his will he attains a degree of poise and mental steadfastness almost impossible of belief on the part of those who allow themselves to be swung backward and forward by the mental pendulum of moods and feelings. Remember always, however, that you do not really destroy the principle of rhythm, for that is indestructible. You simply overcome one law by counterbalancing it with another and thus maintain an equilibrium. The laws of balance and counterbalance are in operation on the mental plane as well as on the physical planes, and an understanding of these laws enables one to seem to overthrow laws, whereas he is merely exerting a counterbalance. Nothing escapes the principle of cause and effect, but there are many planes of causation, and one may use the laws of the higher to overcome the laws of the lower. The Kybalion. By an understanding of the practice of polarization, the Hermeticists rise to a higher plane of causation and thus counterbalance the laws of the lower planes of causation. By rising above the plane of ordinary causes, they become themselves, in a degree, causes instead of being merely caused. By being able to master their own moods and feelings, and by being able to neutralize rhythm, as we have already explained, they are able to escape a great part of the operations of cause and effect on the ordinary plane. The masses of people are carried along, obedient to their environment, the wills and desires of others stronger than themselves, the effects of inherited tendencies, the suggestions of those about them, and other outward causes, which tend to move them about on the chessboard of life like mere pawns. By rising above these influencing causes, the advanced Hermeticists seek a higher plane of mental action, and by dominating their moods, emotions, impulses, and feelings, they create for themselves new characters, qualities, and powers by which they overcome their ordinary environment, and thus become practically players instead of mere pawns. Such people help to play the game of life understandingly, instead of being moved about this way and that way by stronger influence and powers and wills. They use the principle of cause and effect instead of being used by it. Of course, even the highest are subject to the principle as it manifests on the higher planes, but on the lower planes of activity they are masters instead of slaves, as the Kybalion says. The wise ones serve on the higher, but rule on the lower. They obey the laws coming from above them, but on their own plane, and those below them they rule and give orders, and yet in doing so they form a part of the principle instead of opposing it. The wise man falls with the law, and by understanding its movements he operates it instead of being its blind slave. Just as does the skilled swimmer turn this way and that way, going and coming as he will. Instead of being as the log which is carried here and there, so is the wise man as compared to the ordinary man. And yet both swimmer and log, wise man and fool, are subject to law. He who understands this is well on the road to mastery. Interesting, the Kybalion. In conclusion, let us again call your attention to the Hermetic axiom. True Hermetic transmutation is a mental art. The Kybalion. In the above axiom, the Hermeticists teach that the great work of influencing one's environment is accomplished by mental power, the universe being wholly mental. It follows that it may be ruled only by mentality, and in this truth it is to be found an explanation of all the phenomena and manifestations of the various mental powers which are attracting so much attention and study in these earlier years of the 20th century. Back of and under the teachings of the various cults and schools remains ever constant the principle of the mental substance of the universe. If the universe be mental in its substantial nature, then it follows that mental transmutation must change the conditions and phenomena of the universe. If the universe is mental, then mind must be the highest power affecting its phenomena. If this be understood, then all the so-called miracles and wonder workings are seen plainly for what they are. The all is mind. The universe is mental. The Kybalion. Alright, and that completes the Kybalion in full. So a very powerful last chapter, sort of not really prefacing, but sort of going over some of the more important and more crucial principles, mostly pertaining to the mental within the book. Definitely something, if you really want a quick synopsis of some of the most important tools and teachings in the entire book, I definitely think that last chapter sort of goes over everything quite well. So definitely another reread there for sure. Overall, a very solid book. I will say a lot of the language and a lot of the, more so the punctuation in the book really throws me off. I don't know if other people had the same issue with this book when it comes to that, but yeah, some of the words they use and some of the punctuation, I'm just like, I definitely can't easily grasp some of this stuff. I don't know how some other people feel, but otherwise, I think this is a pretty solid book that's sort of touching on more of like ancient, shouldn't say philosophy, but sort of ancient principles and things pertaining to the metaphysical that sort of get into the nitty gritty a little bit more. Though I feel like, I think I mentioned this in a couple chapters, a few past chapters, I think I mentioned that it feels like they start touching on a subject and it seems like they're getting to the really good stuff and they're like, oh, okay, we're not really going to go too deep into this and sort of move on to a different thing. So there's a lot of teases in here, but overall I feel like for the most part this is a pretty good intro book to, if somebody wants to know more about like the foundations of how like the metaphysical works, or I guess the foundation of how like a lot of the mental universe works. This is probably a good starting book otherwise. Shout outs to the person who gave this to me, which is a really weird story. I'll just tell it very quickly, but long story short, I think it was back in 2017 when I was sort of in, I don't know, I don't want to say, yeah, I guess 2017 would probably been more of my peak, my peak arc of being like a very new agey, like just freshly, well, I shouldn't say freshly into spirituality and metaphysical stuff, but it was sort of like the peak of that, like of me being more like the new agey type of person. And I took a trip to Korea. It was like a sort of pilgrimage type of deal. Went with a group, and one of the guys in my group actually gave me this book, which I mean, I found it to be just really crazy, because it was like at that time, like this was like the stuff that I was starting to dive into. I didn't really understand what this was going to be. I mean, I saw like, oh, okay, it's about like something with Egypt and Greece, so like, yeah, it's probably going to have some cool stuff in there, but I had no idea it was going to be very metaphysical focused. So yeah, just like the fact that somehow I was able to manifest this book coming into my life at that time, like if I would have read it during that time, like as soon as I got it, I probably would have been blown away that it was even gifted to me. But yeah, for some reason he thought that I would really like the book, so I was like, okay. I don't even remember expressing anything like to him that I was into this kind of stuff, but yeah, somehow he knew that the book better belonged with me, and I don't think he finished reading it. I think he said he read a little bit of it, so yeah, it's kind of a quick little story on how that book came into my life. But anyway, we are finally done with both the Kybalion and the completion process. Like I said in the previous uploads, we're going to be starting another new book eventually, but what I'm going to do is probably keep just doing one reading for now. I'm not going to juggle 2 books at a time, at least to start. Maybe if I do want to do 2 books at a time, I'll probably wait for the first book to get to like the middle point, halfway point, and then I could maybe pick up a second one. But overall, going forward, we're going to be doing some different sort of stuff on this channel, kind of exploring some way more out there ideas and theories. There's a lot of stuff that basically I'm going to be focusing a lot more on more recent stuff that I've been diving into when it comes like that I've been diving into surrounding like metaphysical stuff, the occult, just really anything that sparks my interest is probably going to end up here on the channel in one way or another. So as my interests shift, like expect a variety of, as my interests shift within the like metaphysical sphere, within the occult sphere, just expect a lot of different content pertaining to that stuff. It'll still be within that category, but the topics will vary pretty much. So I'm not sure how I'm going to do a lot of these series. I've already have one in mind. I've got a couple in mind actually, but they're kind of focused on the same thing. But one will be more of like sort of a react type of thing, and the other is going to be more of like an actual like lecture sort of teaching type series, I suppose. So, or I should say educational type of series pertaining to a certain topic. So those are the 2 things that I know for sure right now I have in the works. I'm going to also be doing a 2024 update video or update vlog pretty soon here. I think that'll be the first thing that goes up. And that's going to go over basically everything that's currently going on with the Phantom pages and some of the other writing projects I'm going to be working on within the next year, this year and into next year. Just sort of recapping all of that stuff and just touching base because it has been a while, and there's a lot of stuff in last year's update that I never even got around to doing. So yeah, I kind of just want to make a fresh update video, just sort of starting fresh in general. And once that's out, we'll start up some of the new content that I'm sure I'll discuss in that update video. So yeah, that's kind of the short synopsis on what's next to come here on the channel, so hopefully you guys stick around if you enjoyed the readings. There will be more, but there's gonna be a little bit of a break in the meantime in terms of readings. So if you enjoyed it, make sure you drop a like on the videos. Check them out again if you want. Comment below on anything. I read all the comments, but most importantly, if you haven't done so yet, make sure to hit the subscribe button so you can stay up to date with all of the future uploads, all the other content. If you're into metaphysical, occult, spirituality type stuff, there's gonna be a lot of that kind of stuff here on the channel, so don't want you guys to miss out. So yeah, that's gonna do it for me for now. Thank you for watching, thank you for listening, thank you for your energy, and I will see you guys in, I suppose, the 2024 update vlog coming pretty soon. Take care.